Alright, so I decided to try making another video here. It's going to be kind of rough. I didn't really figure out a lot of awesome tech for making videos, but I wanted to get this one out here, so we're just going to kind of raw dog it, and hopefully it doesn't turn out too bad. So the main point is that at my locals, Mayhem Comics and Games in West Des Moines, Iowa, we had a 3K Attack on Titan Spotlight event. It was sponsored by Universes Games. We're very lucky and thankful to have that line up like that. Um, we had a decent turnout, 12 people, mostly locals, including people like Tamara Cardwell, Rebby Lynn, as well as some people who came in from out of town from Omaha. I've heard of a few of them: Travis Tangerman, Jacob Johnson, Connor Ray. So yeah, this was a pretty interesting event. Um, we had four Bertholds, shock and awe. Two of them were in the top four, Travis and Rebby. We had an Erwin in the top four as well, by Jacob Johnson. By the way, all these characters were the set two versions. Um, so Bert 2, Erwin 2, all that. With the exception of 5th and 6th, which were the Smiling Titans. We had two Smiling Titans. Um, and then the rest was Cart Titan, Hanji, Historia, Sasha, and last but not least, the other top four, Reiner Braun. And so, yeah, I was not really sure what to expect going into this event. I was debating between Reina and Hanji. I was also considering Hanji too. And while she did have some defensive tricks, namely she could run two sets of Breaker 2 cards, which I thought would come up pretty well against stuff like slowing down Bertholtz. Um, I had play tested against one of the Smiling Titans, Tam, actually, a previous night, and yeah, it turns out Breaker doesn't do much if you can't block a 12 speed move. So I was like, you know what? I'm having more fun playing around anyway. I like pulling the lever on the slot machine and seeing what I get. So I fine tuned it, and we came into this with the following list. Uh, I'm also going to try to include the deck list in the description and all that. So Rhino 2, also, it was like one of the only alt art characters I had, so that's one of the reasons why I considered it. But also, my brother's favorite character, he was a big advocate on me watching Attack on Titan. I wasn't sure about it until the game was like, oh, we're also going to come out with Attack on Titan set. So I'm like, okay, fine, I'll watch it. I don't mind him. He's an alright character. Um, Not in my top three, but probably not in my bottom half by any means. So, six-hander, 17 health, technically 34, but we'll get into that. Well, at least 34. So by slot machine, what I mean is that you can enhance mill 4, your attack gets plus X damage. X is the number of different card types that you milled this way. And if you cycle this game, you also get that much speed. His static is that if he would go to 0 or less, you instead flip him, and that's how you get to the Armor Titan side. Armor Titan says the first attack that your opponent does on their turn gets -5 damage. Unfortunately, the way it's worded, usually if he flips and they play another attack, that won't get the -5 because they've already done their first attack for the turn. Um, so it didn't come up very often where I was flipped and then going into their turn. There were a couple times I might be able to set it up like that, but it just was what it was. Um, and then his enhance is that you can remove, on this side, is that you can remove 3 cards from your discard pile, and then it will get plus X speed and damage, whereas equal to the number of card types in your stage, which originally I forgot included your character. So usually it's character foundation and then whatever other assets, backups you've got. So it's usually at least 3, maybe 4. I think the entire event usually like 3, but still 3/3 on all your attacks is pretty good. And then if you've cycled, you can also pick up a card from your momentum that never came up, but it is also really cool. So, for the main deck, first things first, we have the fire symbol. So we had 4 Attack Titans Haymakers. I was borrowing 2. I pulled 1, I ordered 2. 1 was still coming in the mail, only 1 had arrived. So uh, this is pretty good. And this is actually foil as opposed to some of those, non-foils that have been showing up for trade. Shift 2, sorry, Stun 2. Punch Titan does have shift. 4/5, 4 mid 5 attack. Damage. Like I said, this is all going to be raw. I'm going to mess up some words and directions. Blitz, you can make it so that they can only block with something higher than a 2 diff. And then, nope, that's all there is. This was a card that I had to be mindful of when I was working on my deck because I knew there'd be Berts and potentially other fire symbol characters. So I had to go through the deck and make sure that my high blocks, at least, were not all on foundations and other stuff. I wanted to make sure most of my high blocks were in my attacks itself, for example, as well as others. So yeah, that was something I had to keep in mind of. And then the back side of this, I should have one flipped, is Foundation, Aaron's Determination. It's pretty cool because it's also got a mill effect. There's going to be lots of mill effects in this deck. Mill 1, your attack is +1 damage. If you're at 10 or less health though, it gets +2 damage instead, which when you have 17 health on either side, that's not too difficult to achieve. I know that had come up before a few times. The tricky thing about Attack Titan's Haymaker sometimes was it would do damage, so I had to decide, do I want to go momentum, or do I want to build it down, shifted? Sometimes it would get full blocked, so at that point it's, okay, well, it's going down, shifted. I never had to really worry about having more than one. Obviously, if you have more than one deal damage in a turn, you build one down, but then the other one you can go to momentum because they're unique on the back, so you're not going to be able to build more than one anyway. I know some of the stuff I might be going over is going to be like no duh common sense to a lot of people, but if anybody's watching this that is less experienced, hopefully they can learn at least a little bit from this. I've been playing card games for a while. This one probably had like the highest learning curve for me. I'm still surprised I've gotten as far as I have. So I figure any info that I can put out there, if it were me, and usually it is, I like to gather as much info as I can about the game. So hopefully it comes up and helps somebody. So speaking of attacks and debating what to do with it if it does deal damage, we have Lethal Slash. 4 diff, a nice 1 mid block, 3 high for 4. It's a 2 check. Unfortunately, that did come up a few times. Blitz, draw a card, so it's pretty good just to get out there if you want to see more cards. Response, after this attack resolves, if it was the second or greater attack you played this turn, you can remove it. So, obviously if it deals damage, you'd be tempted to put it in momentum, but usually you just wanted to remove it so you didn't get the progressive. Earlier builds of this deck, I ran stuff like Increased Hostility to take advantage of the fact that you would have removed cards, but I also didn't really think I'd be able to do that too reliably, so that card ended up getting cut. But Lethal Slash stayed. This was a 71 card deck, by the way. I think I did still manage to cycle at least once throughout the event, but like I said, the 2 check also did come up, but I'll get into that later. Now, as far as attacks that we do want to just go to momentum, we have some stuff that punches through, wears bonus damage pretty well. We have Besiege, and we also have Annie's Lake Sweep. Besiege, you're probably familiar with. It is a 1 mid block, 3 check, 3 diff, 3 mid, 4 damage. Speaking of 3s, Blitz, they can only block this with a 3 diff block mod or higher. So that usually makes this pretty hard to block, not impossible. Again, during deck building, I made sure that I wanted to have 3 diff mid blocks on some of my cards, more than I would try to have. So I think I ended up with at least like 10 or 12 maybe. But another thing too is if you've got something like VME, you can make any of your low or your high 3 diffs into mid blocks to fully block something like this. Don't think it came up for me, but it was just something I observed while doing that. And Also on his leg sweep, there was a chaos attuned cheap, or cheapest I could find, throw. So it is a zero low speed, but whatever. And this is one of the three mods that, okay, if I needed to full block up a siege, I could use VME to make a siege into a low. But it's only got a deadlock blitz that never really came up. Your rival flips 2 foundations. And most importantly, though, it's a throw. So again, if I put damage on that, I usually try to edge it so that it was an odd number, so obviously they take more than they would otherwise. And so while those were pretty good at trying to get me momentum, obviously one of the best things to get me momentum is Determined Advance. I like this card. I wasn't sure about going to 4, but I didn't really regret it. It's a really nice opener. The stats are really good. It's a 6 diff, but it's also a 6 mid 6. It's even got a nice 1 mid block. Excuse me. EX3. This attack speed and damage cannot be reduced below printed. That would come up, especially against Bertholtz and some other decks where, it's at least a 6/6. They're not getting below that. It doesn't count for bonus damage, obviously, but and then Blitz, just add the top card of your deck to your momentum. So in a pinch, this could just basically be a 9/6, usually a 9/9 with Bert's effect, or sorry, not Bert, Reiner's effect. And then why do I care so much about getting momentum? A few effects, one of which being Swarmed by Titans. Although, funny thing about this, so first of all, this is one of those other high blocks on an attack that I have. Blitz, your next check this turn gets plus X plus X. Sorry, just plus X. X equals your momentum plus 1. So your next check gets plus 1, which is or more depending on your momentum. Honestly, that never really came up. The reason it's in here was, like I said with Hanji, I was debating on I wanted to have breakers. Now, the problem with Chaos and Fire is they don't have a lot of breakers. In fact, the only 2 I could find in Spotlight were this and Falling Debris. And they were both only breaker 1. I only had 2 Swarmed by Titans, so I put them in there. I didn't go with Falling Debris because I've tried that before. It's a little underwhelming. But more importantly, the reason I went with this one for the breaker option was because it is also as an attack, it's a Fury. And that matters for reasons we'll get to in a moment because, well, I'm interested. So that's a Fury, that's a Fury, that's a Fury, that's a Fury. And some of you may know what that's about, but like I said, I'll get into that in a second. Oh, and this is a Fury. It cares about momentum. Defeating the Colossus Titan. First of all, funny story. After the event, I had to trade for another normal copy because when playing the Obsidian, I realized that I could not tell what zone the attack was. Even trying to find the arrow, I couldn't see which arrow it was. But it is a high attack, high block, high attack. I cannot get the direction properly here to save my life. Powerful 3, charge for your weapon. So the Blitz, my camera quality is not that great. Apologies, but Blitz is lose X health. This attack gets plus X speed. X can't be greater than 5, so you can lose 5, gain 5 speed. And then Blitz, this attack gets plus 4 damage. You only do that if you have less than half your maximum health. Funny thing about having a 17 health character is between the first Blitz and that, if you've taken 4 damage, even if you're at like 13, you can pay 5 and be at less than half of 17. So it was really easy to meet that threshold. Despite that fact, it was still, I don't think it came up too much where I got both off, but in terms where I did and had like any decent amount of momentum, this would just delete people. So it's one that people have had to suggest to me, and I'm glad they did because I don't know if I would have tried it otherwise, but very nice card. Now, as far as gaining momentum goes, we have our 4 actions. I'm just going to lay these all out here. So these are the non-attack, non-foundations. We had 4 actions, 7 assets, 4 backups. I was a little worried about trying to have more backups and actions, but the thing is that as far as trying to get the bonuses off mill, like all of these count for, your third point. Because normally it's going to be foundation, attack, and then one or two of these. So you'd still get three or four as long as you had a good mix. And then for the back side, you still had, this many of something else that could be in play besides foundation in your character. And I'll get into the depth of these here now. So it would have been 4 surprising strength, but I only had 3 and I couldn't find one. So we snuck in a wrongful kidnapping, which can also snap a momentum. The problem is it doesn't add itself. But it does have first enhance, remove your next check to play card gets +2. That came up once, and I think that's actually the only mode of this I played. Otherwise, I just like blocked with it or sided it out. Actually, no, I didn't even side it out. Anyway. But yeah, surprising strength, really nice action card if you care at all about momentum. You enhance, it adds itself to momentum after giving one of your attacks EX2 or Powerful 2. So if it didn't already have that, like if I did it with defeating the Colossus Titan, even though it's got Powerful 3, I could give it EX3 and then snap it over there. So if I somehow need more than 11 speed. Alright, and then on to the assets. Obviously, we've got VME. At first, I only had 2 vertical maneuvering equipments, but after some playtesting, I wanted no less than 3. Like I said earlier, just because I want the ability to shift zones if I need to full block something, obviously. It came up at least once that I buffed the speed on one of my attacks, just to make it get through for lethal. I don't think I ever committed for bonus damage, though. Or in turns I would have, they just scooped anyway. And then my second asset is just more soup. Apologies if you've already heard that a million times, but it's still funny to me, damn it. If you build it, if you play it, you build it immediately, which is really nice, and actually I think is a good way to get people to play assets. 1 mid, and you can commit, your attack gets +1 damage, gain 1 health. This was neat. Obviously, I've got a low health total, but just gaining a health here and there still would make it harder for them to flip. If I could, put them off by 1 on what they thought would be an attack that would flip me, then if I live quote unquote at 1, that's a whole nother attack they gotta spend to try to get me to flip at that point. It also synergizes with defeating insofar as if I am at less than 5, this can put me that much closer. It basically gets +1 speed, +1 damage in that case. On turns where I usually didn't want to buff the damage unless it was on something that was going to get through, or like on the throw, and even then only if it would make it an odd number. Then on my opponent's turn, the idea is if I haven't used it to buff the damage, I still commit it to gain health if I'm below 17 whatsoever. That works out a lot better if you are not dumb like I was and try to do it when you were at 17 after you just flipped. But, I don't think that game was going to go in my favor anyway. Either way, moving on to the backup, we just have Grish's Attack Titan. I messed around with some of the 1-diffs at first, but this is actually a suggestion from Tam and Cardwell, just not even mess with those, just go with a full suite of Grish's Attack Titans. And it worked out pretty well. I was not used to playing with backups, so I kind of forget that in some instances you just play them and they get deleted immediately by an attack. So we had ways to get around that, which I'll get into later, but the important thing that I realized also was because we're trying to conserve as much of our initial health as possible to make it even harder for them to get through and flip us, if they are pointing an attack at our backup, then instead of this being form, sacrifice, add 1 fury attack from your discard pile to your hand, it becomes, alright, your opponent discarded an attack, which is still a nice benefit, even if it might not be the one you're going for. That is why the majority of these are fury, by the way, aside from the fact that most of the furies are just good attacks. So there were a lot of times where it'd be, I'll pick up one of my defeating the Colossus Titan, or I'll just pick up another lethal slash so I can just keep going and all that stuff. take over the siege if I need to try to close the game. If I, worst case scenario, pick up a swarm by titans if I think I'm going into their turn. I need the breaker. So that's all that. All we have left is the foundations. For Scream, initially I wasn't sure. So by default, my initial assumption was you just play the 2 sets of zeros that you have access to in Spotlight. Um, but as I started going through and modifying the decks that I was working on, I realized that it also might just be a good idea to have as many foundations with text on them as possible. But in the end, I found myself wanting at least one set of zeros. On Chaos and Fire, the fire one being Primitive Desires, they're both 3 mid blocks. So like I said, I wanted some of those anyway for the occasional Besieged. The problem with that being on your zero is you have that because you're going to build it 9 times out of 10. So having a good or a block mod that you want on a zero is tricky sometimes. So I made sure to have other 3 mods, and I just went with Scream just because we didn't have to write down deck lists, but the event that we did, I'd rather write down Scream than print in the Desires. That's really the only mixing I did in that regard. Moving on to like our card draw or card advantage, we've got Horrifying Realization. Obviously, pretty decent staple for Chaos. Form, flip, discard, and draw. The 2 mid block. You and your opponent discard and draw, and then if your opponent discarded a foundation, they have to commit 1. Didn't come up often, but judging by my opponent's reactions a couple times, I could tell that I was de-sculpting them, which was pretty neat. Usually it's just, I'm going to get rid of a useless card in my hand and try to fish for a better one. We had 3 long-range support. I think this was only a 3 just because I needed room, and it was a chunky block and a 2 diff, so given that we were running 2 checks, we didn't want too many of these. Response once per turn. After you deal damage, you can discard and draw, so it's another way to go through your deck. Sorry, this is draw 1, discard 1. I'm going to get those mixed up, and I probably had to reread each of my cards that do that every time just to make sure I was doing it in the right order. But yeah, if you deal damage, you get to draw 1, discard 1. There's a deck idea I'm working on that is Chaos that cares about you discarding cards. So these are probably going to see some use by me again in the near future. I wish there was a better way to get access to the promo art, the alt art of this. Like it was the victory promo for the LC. I think it was the last season of LCs. Most stores only had 2, so they only had 2 of the promo give out, which was unfortunate. I wouldn't even care if it was a non-foil, didn't say victory, if it was like some way up on the shop and, available to people for long enough instead of disappearing into the aether like certain zero diff foundations that I'm totally not still butthurt about. Anyway, here's a promo, a Father Sen. This has a really chunky 4 block, but hey, if you really need to stop that Besiege from killing you, and also this is a response on play, so even if you block with it, but usually it's while you're building. Response on play, mill 4. If you mill 2 or more attacks that way, you draw a card. So sometimes a turn might go a Father Sen, mill 4, maybe draw 1. Lethal Slash, since that's my second card played now, remove it, keep building. Or I just during my build turn, my first turn or whatever, I build that, mill 4, try to draw another attack, hopefully, or not another card, hopefully it's like another foundation I can play. The deck was 71, like I said. I did have a lot of mill options to try to get me to cycle if I needed to, but like I said, I think it only came up like once. Another mill card, and one that cared about us having different card types on our stage, was Betraying Marco. This card is hilarious in a deck like this. If you get 2 or 3 of these in your stage, you are just melting people. Well, sorry, 2 of these and an asset and a backup, because Betraying Marco says mill 1. Your attack gets +1/+1 if you have at least 1 asset and 1 backup in your stage. So like I said, you need to keep both of those in play. The assets were pretty easy because I had Soup. Soup would just build itself down. But if I needed to get Grishas in play, we had some answers for those. Actually, sorry, before I get to that, Reiner predicts Berthold. I think I just wanted like 2 more high blocks in the deck. This one's a commit. I don't really like commit cards, but it does mill 1 at least. And it's some speed hate. Mill 1, this tech gets -3 speed, but if you mill the foundation this way, it only gets -1 speed instead. I think I did that like once during the event, and it was a foundation, so it was only -1, but still. Um, I didn't really have a lot of other options at that point. Okay, now here we go. So, getting backups in play. Emerging threats. Form, flip, build a backup from your card pool. That's really cool. It's got a deadlock form. Commit your next trick to play a shift attack. It's +3. I didn't go to deadlock, or I didn't go. No, my opponent didn't go to deadlock when I had this out. If they did, I guess I could get +3 to a check to play Attack Titan's Haymaker, but yeah, it just didn't come up. This is another one of the 3 mod blocks that I had, but again, that's another one that I actually want to build, not hold back, so kind of awkward there. We had Pull from Danger. So, like I said, the issue with backups is that if you build one, you have to worry about your opponent trying to go for it, and you can't block it for your backups, unfortunately. But what you can do is if they are going for it, you can reduce the damage. That's about the only defense to your opponent like in this format anyway. You don't have Genkais or Cave of No Return or anything. So pull from danger was my best like damage reduction option that I had. It didn't come up that people were going for my backups as often though in the tournament as it did during playtesting, but it's also just nice for reducing damage. Like if you don't want to block something, you can reduce the damage so it just doesn't do anything. Or again, if they're going for lethal on you, excuse me, lethal for the first half, my front side, just reducing the damage makes them have to burn more attacks. Being a 4 diff was a little rough, but that didn't come up as much. Speaking of damage reduction, we have Attack Titan's Hardening, our last mill option, our last foundation we have here. Enhance, sack foundation. This tech gets -1 damage. Again, just that 1 damage can matter. But if I cycle, the ability is different. I sack a foundation to give my attack +1 damage, +1 speed. It becomes like a death maneuvers. So that was the deck. Obviously, it did pretty decently. My record so I made top 4. We did the top 4 cut. By the end of Swiss, going into top 4, I was 3rd seed, 3rd place. I won't go on the top 4 final thing, but I was not first. I'll just put it that way. So my rounds, though, for the event was round 1. I played against my first Berthold of the day. Jared, he's a local player, a friend of mine. He actually was the one that let me borrow the other 2 haymakers. Game 1 went fairly standard, as standard of a game as AOT Spotlight Universes can go. I do remember at one point when I was trying to do Defeating the Colossus Titan, I misordered my blitzes. What I did was I blitz, spent the health. I was at like 2. I was at 1, and then I think I potatoed to get to 2. And I spent that 2 to get 2 speed and to flip. The problem being is I should have done this attack gets +4 damage first, because once I flipped and I was at 17, I wasn't less than half. So I couldn't. I was just used to going first, second. So I kind of had my brain off for that one. So if I did that, that would have killed, but luckily I was able to play another attack afterwards, so I still finished it. And then game 2, some interesting plays came up. On their first attack, I don't remember what it was. I just remember it was a high. We did get to block with Swarm by Titans, and we break her wand. That did end up with their foundation count, their ready foundation count going down over the course of that turn. And then they were going for what would have been their, not quite their lethal attack, but it was still going to hit pretty hard. So what I did was I had Attack Titans Hardening. Now, they had Sacrifice for the Cause in play. So I knew that they'd be able to sack it to stop me. Oh, it was lethal for my first side. They were going to use an attack to get me to flip. But if I reduced the damage by 1, it would have been enough to make them have to use a whole another attack. But what they did was they did respond. They sacked the Sacrifice for the Cause to cancel the ability, so the damage did flip me. However, now they were down another foundation. So when they did go for the lethal attack for that turn, uh, when he played it, I'm like, okay. When he was going to go for the next attack, I'm like, okay. But if he goes for it, if he gets anything but, like, if he gets a 3, it fails. So I just have to hope it's an attack that he flips. I think he was going to go for risking counter, but then he kind of did the math and realized that, yeah, it will fail if he does get attacked. So he went for, I think it was just a 3, like a besiege or something out of his hand. But lucky for me, it was the attack. So the Breaker 1 and forcing the sack of the Ray Foundation did keep me alive. And then on my turn, it was Unga Bunga defeating the Colossus Titan for the victory. Game 2, however, was another Berthold. This time it was Travis. So I was not too optimistic is all I'll say. I try not to mentally, give my opponent the win before I sit down to play, but look, the only other time that I've gotten to play Travis in an event was at Atlanta, and he was on Rodan, and I was on what I thought was a decent Kurama build, but I got steamrolled, so it wasn't that decent. But nonetheless, at least we had been talking outside of events and doing some practice games and all that. So I thought I could at least do as good as I could. And game 1 actually was going a lot better than I could have hoped. He was getting some fairly bad checks early on. I got off to a pretty decent start. It got to the point though where I needed to block an attack, and I did the math and was like, okay, it's going to be on a 4, but that's fine. I've got a ready foundation. I checked the 3, whatever. And I'd been milling my deck pretty thoroughly. At some point, I forgot to mill myself on their turn for no effect, but I really couldn't tell if that mattered or not until after I check. Of course, I check one of my 2s left. So failed the block. Basically ended up dying that turn. Like I was in range for lethal after I failed that block. I couldn't have known that if I had milled, like for Reiner or one of my effects, that it would have gotten a 2 off top. Maybe I would have seen the other 2. I think there were only 2 left on the deck. So it was what it was. Game 2 was more even. Despite going first, he got off to a pretty good start as well. I didn't think I was going to have much time before he just had the juice to kill me, so I was trying to play as aggressive as possible. And it was working out better than I could have expected, but I didn't want to build out too far also because I was worried about, Bert flipping. So what ended up happening was I was going to build down. I still had okay, these are the 3 I'm going to keep. These are some ones I can get rid of. But luckily for me, at the time, I thought he decided to flip at my end turn. So I blew up the ones I didn't need, built in some. His turn. Berthold did Berthold things and killed me on 3 foundations. 3 plus the ones he built off deflecting SWAT. Not deflecting SWAT. Colossus's deflecting SWAT. Whatever. The one that builds in the 2. At one point I could see him he was going through his discard pile, his remove pile, and I assumed based on kind of how it looked that he was doing his check math. How many attacks do I have left in my deck based on what's outside of my deck, sort of thing. But I guess the math checked out on his end because he was able to just play enough to just kind of get me. It is what it is. at the very least, I don't feel like I misplayed too bad. There was one point actually where I did, um, that was where I did the all soup to gain a life, but forgot that I just flipped, so it didn't really work out too well. So we're rolling one. We are 1-1 at that point. Round three, however, was going in against Historia. This was Kyle Wright. I'd not played against Historia very much, so I really wasn't sure what the deck was going to go for. So I'm just like, I'll just play as cautiously as possible. And some things I noticed and planned for did pay off. Game one, I did see that they were on Minkus' knee strike. I don't think he played it or blocked with it, but I saw it in the discard pile. And like I said, one of the decks I'd be considering was Hanji because I had a life symbol. You can play that, and that's got Breaker too. So I kept that in mind. I won game one. Honestly, I forget the details on how. So game two, we're playing, and I've got a potentially lethal setup. So what I do is I've got this, and this. Hello. Oh, something. Okay, so here's the actors for this. There's some other cards obviously in play, but these are what matter. So this and some stuff. And so it's like, sure, whatever. Determined, get a momentum. And now my plan is to try to get as big of a defeating the Colossus Titan as possible going. Now, when this came down, I held this because I was like, okay, I think I know what may be coming, and I know a way to get around it. He blocks with the Minkus' knee strike, Breaker 2. So I'm like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. On a 3, checked like, I think it was a 5, so I checked a 3, so it passed. Merging threats form, build down. And that's how we play around block Breaker. Also, if I had Soup, Soup does it really well too. So from there, I was able to go on a 7, check it. I didn't have quite, I think he was at like 26. So I had some momentum. I think it was actually close to maybe like I had 3 momentum. But I needed more. So we go Surprising Strength. That goes there. Another one. I did both the blitzes to full effect. Dump everything for the powerful. It was at the end of everything like on 11 high for 29. Yeah. I would not blame anyone for being upset to losing to that. But yeah, that is what it was. So round 4, I played against the Hanji that did show up. It was being played by Thomas, another local player and friend of mine. He recently got into the game. I'd been wary of life gain tactics going into this event, and he'd been doing a really good job of living longer than even aggressive decks expected. Luckily, I got rolling pretty hard the first game. Game 2, I forgot to go over my side deck prior to this. Short story, not a lot of it came up. We had this, in case people try to mess with my momentum. This, if I got really scared of blitzes. This, I thought might be a good Breaker 1. I barely sided in any of these. Any ones I did side that didn't come up. What did come up, though, was in game 2 of this match, I had sided in Spring into Action and Jaw type attacks. Now, I didn't even see this. This one is Response Tenacious Flip. After a rival gains health, they lose 2 health. It's also just nice in this deck because if I cycle for the game, I can commit my attack at stun 2. So, stun 4 off an attack Titan's Haymaker seems pretty nice. But the sauce was Jaw Titan's attack, because not only could the front side get me a bit of health back, and I would just like side out some of the determined advance because it was a 6 check for a 6 check. Diff, 6 diff for a 6 diff. It became a 4 check instead of 3 check anyway. But yeah, so Jaw Titan attacks. There was a turn. I got that off on a turn. He was doing his damn best to kill me. He was he was at full, so he couldn't do any life gains interactions. But I still ate like 3 or 4 attacks. Um, but yeah, so we had the Jaw Titan attacks. He couldn't gain life, so it had shifted, so it was on the backside, and he didn't go for it. He was going for my face. And then on my turn, I'm starting to go off with attacks and everything. So after the first attack did damage, then on my second attack, he played something to gain life. I think I'd already committed, done 2 stamina, gave my first one speed. So on the next one, he's like, okay, I've taken damage, so I can gain life and pop off all my life gain effects. Sorry. Tenacious. Lose 3 stamina. After you're able to play an ability that increases their health, cancel it. And they cannot gain health the rest of this turn. So from there, he just kind of had to sit and watch me play the game. And he was a good sport about it, though. So yeah, from there, we got into top 4. I mean, how that played out wasn't really too important. It was a 3K, so I think by the end of it, I ended up walking away with over $400, which was, yeah, I did a lot better than I expected. So I decided to reward myself a little bit. Some of my spoils went towards another box. Like I said earlier, I've got 3 Attack Titans Haymakers. I still really like 1 more. Can't imagine why I'd want to place it of those for anything I may or may not be looking for Nats. But anyway, it's not available anywhere. Facebook groups, TCG Player. I set up a thing. I've been refreshing TCG Player. I only got, like I said, the 2 off there. 1 had actually been listed and sold during the 3K, but nobody was paying attention to their phone, obviously. So what we're going to do here is crack open this box as part of this video. I know this is probably going to be a long video, but whatever. I'm not doing this for monetization. This is just for fun. I just wanted to get the report out there, and I figure a little bonus box opening at the end might be fun. Like I said, we're really only fishing for the one thing. I mean, I'm not going to say no to a throne, obviously. But, I did end up getting, and like I said, in preparation for this, I did end up picking up a pretty decent amount of the necessary URs and whatnot. So, but we'll see what we end up with here. I'm just going to kind of fly by the commons and uncommons and everything. Okay, so off the gate, we are up to, we have a playset of defeating the Colossus Titan now. Okay, that's, we take those. I guess the only thing I might be looking for would be Rock Barrage. Oh, we got another Ultra already, or an Ultra already. We got Attack Titan's Rush. I had one of these so far. I was considering one for the build, but we ended up not going with that. It's got a nice backside. Basically invincible body on the backside in a way, but 7 is pretty hefty. Oh. Manipulations of Zeke Yeager. That's a card that I'd already gotten 4 of. Again, no idea why I could want 4 of a 5-Dead Foundation. But hey, we got an extra now at least, so cool, I guess. And I have a feeling this is going to be another box. When I opened my first few boxes when the set came out, like all the URs and the SR, like all the good stuff was on top. So not all the boxes were like that, but some of them were. I wonder if this is another box that is going to be like that. Okay, not quite. So we got a rare, we got Scavenge Rifle. That might actually be my 4th, so that's not too bad. Alright. Here. We got another SR in the form of Obsidian. Survey Corps Teamwork. This is the air one, right? Can't tell. I gotta be honest, the Obsidians, I don't know if I'm a fan, because they are a little hard to read sometimes. But yeah, so that's another one of those. I think that's my 2nd. I think it's my 2nd Obsidian. maybe my third of that card period. So we'll just see if I can find a use for that. Now we've got Ready Shot. I have not sorted my stuff too recently, so I'm not quite sure. At least, very least, I've got some trade fodder, I guess. We have Last Second Rescue. I keep going towards the box, but I've still got packs here in front of me. I'll put this stuff off to the side. Okay. Ooh, oh. Another UR that I did get 4 copies of already, but whatever. That's one to trade off. Like I said, it's a good one. Breaker 2. It's not common in Spotlight. Not that I don't think we're going to do Spotlight again anytime soon, but if we do, let's not say shot. I think I got a set of those 2. But these are ones I could probably trade off and find some new ones for. Hopefully. Ooh, well, there's a 5th Lethal Slash. This was the one downside I thought of to buying the boxes. Yeah, I'm gonna get a lot of extras, but I needed to build up. But ooh, that's an extra one, or that's not an extra one. Skillful Maneuvers. But work towards my set for those. All right, so judging by this, I think the rest of my URs are going to be near the top of this side. Short range shot. I think it's a 5th. So we're going to, let's try this. 1, 2. How many URs did we see? 3. We're going to try 1, 2, 3. We're going to try setting those off to the side. And we'll plow through these first. Let's see what we got here. Determined Dive. All right, it's another 5th copy. Yeah, I knew I shouldn't have done this. Oh well. Ooh, Queen Astoria. That's I think I only had one of those. That's nice. All right, let's see what we got over here. We've got that. No, it's not shiny. Anti-personnel vertical maneuvering equipment. Dante from Devil May Cry series. We have another UR. Covert Assault. So one of these might not be a UR. Noticing a distinct lack of Attack Titan's Haymaker though. Oh well, it was a gamble, like I said. Ooh. Awful Kidnapping. More of those. I may like the chance of randomness a little too much. Titan's Grasp. I was considering that because it was another throw. It's an 8 damage throw for Reiner, but I just passed because it was a 5 diff. Oh, speaking of Reiner. And speaking of 5th copies. Man, I picked up a lot of these. Thinking I might need them for decks. But the problem is these are all extras now, unfortunately. Oh well. It is what it is. At least I've got trades, I guess. Yeah, usually I get a case of a set, but this time I'm just getting 3 boxes. 4 now, but ooh. Shiny Urban. I don't think I'd play her. I didn't get a chance to look at Jacob's deck in action, but I'm sure it was interesting. All right. Last of not the 3 that I set aside, down but not out. Attack this +1 speed, +1 damage, unplayable if you're more committed than a rival. All right. Got 3 packs we set aside from the top. Statistically, 2 of those are URs. Ooh, we got two alts in this box. We got Rooftop Rumble. Not sure if that would be something I play, but it looks nice. Alright. Oh my, okay, never mind. Okay, we got Prowess the Survey Corps. Oh, we got Cabin Hideout. So Cabin Hideout, I didn't mention the deck review, but this was an asset I've been considering, but at the end I cut it just because it didn't seem, I mean, form, build a card from my hand is pretty good, but I didn't want too many. Oh no. Nope, that last pack just dropped on the floor. Hopefully it's from the weight of the chrome inside of it. I mean, technically, I think we did come out pretty good for the box at least, but we will show. Well, it's a UR. It's a ranged Titan UR with fire. It's not Haymaker. Oh. Well, it is what it is. I mean, these are all copies. I mean, that's still pretty okay. Well, objectively speaking, this was a pretty good box because despite the 6 secret rares, there's the 6 ultra rares and that's rare. We got 2 of these, so that's good luck in a way, right? Alright, well, I'll just have to update what I've got, set aside what I've got for trade. Maybe we can find an extra Haymaker some other way. So anyway, I'm going to try to figure out how to make videos better and get some more stuff going, kind of revive the channel a little bit. Just really there for a while. I kind of took a break from the game. I came back a while ago, but I just didn't really have it in me to work on videos. I've been distracted by a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah, speaking of working on things, I don't have a good outro, so we're just gonna end it here.